What's up? Welcome back. Week 3, Best F and Fantasy Show live from the basement. As always, I'm your host, Steve Albertini, joined here my round table of merry men. It's Jigga Joe Del Mastro, Jerry Procopio, a little under the weather, but he's here, ready to rock.
Just got out of the company sauna.
You look like shit.
Carmen Del Mastro, and our producer, Nick Specca, who is all over the Twitter board right now, gathering up some questions for later on in the show. As always, follow us on Twitter at BestFNShow. Check out the website, bestfnfantasyshow.com, for all your Week 3 needs. Rankings will be up. Exciting Week 2 in the NFL. A lot of people that were disappointing in Week 1 regained your attention in Week 2, and a lot of guys who surprised in Week 1 kind of fell back down to earth in Week 2. I'm talking about you, Peyton. Jared, what stood out to you in Week 2?
What stood out to me the most was Danny Amendola scored more fantasy points than Aaron Rodgers, Jay Cutler, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, Darren McFadden, and Chris Johnson combined.
What the f*** is going on?
That's what stood out to me the most.
The hell of a stat, Jerry.
Yeah,
that is. That's good. You sound sexy with your sick voice too, by the way.
Whoa. That's enough of that.
And Julian Edelman started over Wes Welker, which was kind of weird. I don't get it.
Wes Welker, glad you brought that up, did see increased reps from Week 1 at a very disappointing Week 1. We all remember. And a main reason for that was the injury to Aaron Hernandez. For Hernandez owners, what's the move going forward here?
He is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. There's a couple good tight ends that should be out there. Martellus Bennett's a free agent in a lot of leagues. He's been doing pretty good. He scored the last 2 weeks. He's getting a lot of looks. Also, Dennis Pitta. He was targeted most out of any tight end in the league through the first 2 weeks. So I would look at him as well.
What other must-adds are on the waiver wire this week, guys?
I would say Mikel LaSure, coming off his 2-week suspension. It's more of a speculative pickup because you don't know how they're going to use him yet. They still have Kevin Smith, obviously, but you don't know what he's going to do yet. So he's worth picking up just to see what he does.
Another guy you might want to look into is Andre Brown. He's got a favorable matchup Thursday night. Carolina's given up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Bradshaw, not looking likely that he's going to be able to play the short week. He's a guy, if you're weak at running back this week, why not take a flyer on him?
Really, if you're a Steven Jackson owner, you want to look at Darrell Richardson. He's the number 2 back. It's not Isaiah Pete anymore. And he came in and he did pretty well. So really only worth it if you're a Steven Jackson owner.
Any thought whatsoever into the Kellen Winslow signing in New England?
I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have because I just think he still has to come in. He starts to learn Josh McDaniels' offense. I don't see anything coming right off the bat. I would say maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, he might do something. But then, in the meantime, Hernandez is coming back 2 weeks later.
Well, I mean, if Seattle cut him, there's got to be a red flag on him. Something.
Yeah. I'm not buying that he's 100% healthy either.
What about a guy like Jackie Battle, running back for San Diego? Stepped in, had a nice game against Tennessee. We're still a little unsure of Matthews.
Yeah.
He's a week-to-week thing to keep an eye on. What do you think about Jackie Battle?
Well, Matthews is supposed to come back this week, and he's still more of a wait-and-see. But if you're a Matthews owner, keep Jackie Battle on your watch list. That's all I have to say.
How about a guy that I believe was a who the f*** is that sleeper last week? Andrew Hawkins had a nice game, came through. If somebody was looking for a waiver wire ad, is he somebody that's a must-add?
He's not a must-add right now, in my opinion. He's more of a stash. So if you're going in a deeper league, why not pick him up? I mean, the first week he had 8 catches. Last week he had 2, 3 catches, and the one touchdown was like 50 yards scramble.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's a guy. He's involved in the offense. He's probably the number 2, option for Dalton. So I mean, why not stash him?
Jared, another guy I want to bring up is a guy that you've been high on all off season, and that's Brandon LaFell.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, Brandon LaFell has to be a must-own in all formats, correct?
Well, I was actually going to put him in one of my legends this week because first week he scored. Last week he got about 130 yards total. He almost scored, but at this point I think he's a solid wide receiver 3 going forward. Could be better. You never know.
All right, I want to do a little buy-sell here on some guys who have been underperforming and some guys that have been performing like crazy that you didn't expect. And I'm curious to see where you guys land on these guys. First, I want to start with Chris Johnson, consensus first-round pick in all formats. To say he's been underperforming would be a massive understatement. What do you do if you're a Johnson owner, or if you're a guy targeting Johnson for a buy low scenario?
Well, he's a guy, if you're waiting to see what he does this week against the Lions. I know we've been getting a bunch of questions. Oh, do I start this guy over Johnson? Do I start this guy? Do I drop him for, guys that aren't even on the radar? So, I mean, here's a guy, if you're looking for a back, he's a big name. You can get the value out of him possibly this week against the Lions. If he can produce this week, this is the time to trade him, because his upcoming schedule is absolutely nightmare matchups for him. Just the way they're using, just the way the offensive line's been. See, if he can produce somewhat this week, then next week, then I would say sell him.
Yeah, I agree. You got to get rid of him if you can. If he goes out, has a monster week, everybody will jump back on the bandwagon. You got to try to unload him while you can.
Personally, I don't see him doing that much against the Lions. I think the Lions are going to come out to an early lead. It's going to force Jake Locker to pass the ball more, and they're probably not going to run the game. You'd be lucky if you got 60 yards out of Johnson. Mostly it's going to be through receptions. That's what I think. I mean,
well, even if he has a decent game, you might be able to get something back for him. You can't just drop him.
Oh yeah, you can't drop him. If you could trade him for like running back 2 at this point,
at least get some value out of him. You can't just drop him, and then if
the problem is at this point right now is that no one's going to give you anything close to equal market value for him. So
exactly.
What is equal market value for him though?
2 weeks ago you could have gotten another stud running back for him, but that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, he went.
Obviously,
easily.
everything adjusts as the season goes on.
Yeah, he went between picks 5 and 8, 9 overall. So you're not going to get a first or second round pick for him at this point.
You mentioned Danny Amendola earlier. Obviously, he's not going to give you that production that he gave you this week on a regular basis. But is he in PPR formats? He seems like a solid play. But is he a guy to keep an eye on?
Oh yeah, PPR formats. He's a solid wide receiver 2. Regular formats, wide receiver 3. He's a weekly starter every week. He's the focal point of that receiving core.
Another guy I want to talk about. He's kind of gotten lost in in all the RG3 hoopla over the last 2 weeks, and that's Fred Davis, a guy who thought of very favorably going into the season. Thought he would have a nice breakout year. Hasn't done much of anything yet. Where do you stand on Davis?
Well, he did come out of the game early. He has a concussion, so you still want to wait and see what's going to happen next week. But there's still potential there.
It's chest pain city with that guy already. I mean, he was touted as being top 5 potential early on. Now, I mean, even in the preseason, RG3 wasn't targeting him, and now even through the first 2 games, I know he's got the concussion issue, but even in the first game, he wasn't getting any targets. He's just not looking his way. It's either he's going to Garcon when he's on the field, Hankerson, or his other options.
What about Larry Fitzgerald? Traditionally been a guy that's performed regardless of what bum quarterback he's had. 4-yard performance this week in a surprising win by the Cardinals in New England. Where do you stand on Fitzgerald?
I can't get excited about having Fitzgerald in my lineup with the way they rotate Skelton and Cobb. They're 2 of the worst quarterbacks in the league, so I can't have confidence with Fitzgerald moving forward. I don't care what kind of potential he has on the field. I'm just not a fan of Fitzgerald with those 2 at the helm.
Yeah, he's another guy that you could probably still sell pretty high. I mean, people know that. People know that he puts up numbers with regardless of quarterback. But this, if you could sell him before this week, I would, because he's not going to do much against the Eagles. I don't see it. Cobb's going to be on the ground all day with that pass rush.
Is this the perfect time if you're an owner to sell Reggie Bush?
I think you got to hang on to Reggie Bush. Yeah. He reminds me a little bit of what Maurice Jones-Drew was last year. They have no one else on that offense like Jones-Drew has. So, I mean, he's going to get his touches. They're going to run the ball with him. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a solid RB2 in all formats moving forward.
Yeah, I would hang on to him unless you have better options and you're looking to upgrade one of your other skill positions.
I mean, Bush has really done nothing but perform since they've made the commitment to make him the feature guy.
Yeah, he's shown that he can be an NFL running back. So,
where do you guys stand on, in general, and you guys can break down the specific guys, where do you stand in general on the Packers' passing attack? Aaron Rodgers and the wide receivers, very disappointing so far. I mean, San Fran and Chicago are pretty tough matchups, but not what we were expecting.
Yeah, they don't look like they're in sync at all. I don't know if it has something to do with the running game. They just can't run the ball. There's no balance in the offense. And last week against the Bears, looked like he had somewhat of an elbow injury, one of the sacks during the game. But find a way to put Randall Cobb into the offense more. They line him up in the backfield. They line him up in the slot. He has to be more involved in the offense because he's the guy I could just see balancing that offense. But as of right now, there is no balance to the offense.
Yeah, I mean, well, Jennings was out last week, which is a bit of a loss. James Jones dropped could have been a touchdown. And,
yeah, you have the drops, you have injuries.
Yeah.
All this stuff is,
Finley had a couple drops.
It's just starting to add up now.
The only guy he really trusts throwing the ball to is really Jordy Nelson at this point. As long as if Jennings isn't on the field.
Are you panicking if you took Aaron Rodgers in your one of the first 5 picks?
No, I think he's going to bounce back. He's still going to produce at an elite level going forward.
Here's another guy who kind of slipped in a lot of drafts, but has been nothing short of sensational in the first 2 weeks, and that's Frank Gore. Some whispers that Kendall Hunter was going to shoulder more of the load. They added James and Jacobs, but Gore's been great. What do you think about Gore going forward?
He actually looks a lot faster than he used to. He looks like he slimmed down a lot in the offseason. I still think Hunter is going to be a big part of the offense moving forward. Gore is up in age. He's still going to get his looks, Hunter, as the season progresses. He produces when he comes in. He's averaging around 7-8 yards a carry when he's in the game. So, I mean, he's a guy, if you're a Frank Gore owner, you have to have Kendall Hunter because Gore still does have the injury past.
Is RG3 for real? Jared?
Inquiring minds want to know.
He's still...
Strictly from a fantasy perspective, we're not saying he's going to win the Super Bowl this year, but... From a fantasy perspective, is he a week in, week out guy in your lineup?
Yeah, he looks pretty solid.
Someone's changing his tune.
He's one of the few fantasy quarterbacks that have been in the top 8 of points in the first 2 weeks. So
he's outperforming your boy Rodgers. He's outperforming your boy Brady.
Breeze.
Outperforming
Stafford.
Breeze. Everybody.
All the top quarterbacks are not.
All your first-round quarterbacks that you love so much, he's outperforming. Yeah, keep shaking your head over there.
No, I mean, RG3 has been incredible. I mean, no one thought that he would be performing at this level. I mean, it's still early. It's 2 weeks in, but it looks good for RG3 going forward. How about Darren McFadden? Only 54 rushing yards in the first 2 weeks. Where do you stand on McFadden going?
I think you got to, just stick it out with him. The first week, it was, between week 1 and week 2, it was like the tale of 2 different backs. I mean, they were running options with him like he was Darren Sproles. In week 1, they had 13 catches. Then this past week, they just give up on him. They get in the hole and they give up on him. Why not keep using him in the pass game? He's their best offensive player, but you have to stick it out with him.
Yeah, you got to hang on to him. He still has potential to be a top 5 running back.
Jamal Charles is an interesting name. Former fantasy beast. Really hasn't done much of anything this year. Yet to find the end zone. Only 100 total yards in 2 games. And the Chiefs have been on the wrong side of blowouts in both of those games, which I'm sure adds to that. But, what do you think about Charles going forward?
Yeah, they took him out of the game early. He was having soreness in his knee. They want to be careful with him. If you're a Charles owner, you should have drafted Hillis as well. Hillis is going to get the bulk of work right now. And also Sean Jerome, who's really been impressive. They signed him off the practice squad. He's been doing really good as a third stringer, so keep an eye on him too. It looks like, I think they're just going to have like a committee approach this year.
They might as well, but here's the even bigger thing. If you look at the guys that were banged up last year, you got Peterson. He's fine right now. Then you have Fred Jackson, who had the injury. He's out. Forte, he had the injury. He's out.
Good point.
Now Charles, he had the injury in the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
His knees bother him already.
Yeah.
Is this do you think it's going to be a trend moving forward with these guys?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean.
Or is Adrian Peterson just that much of a freak compared to the rest of them?
Yeah, I would put Peterson on a different level than them.
Ahead of them always.
A little bit.
I think the only person on the Chiefs you really look at was Dwayne Bowe's performance. Garbage time production.
King of garbage time.
He is the king of garbage
solid
time.
Points though.
He's the trash man.
Finished with 15 targets last week. So
Duke the dumpster jersey.
that's pretty good.
Dude, I love it. Love it.
Take that anytime.
Trent Richardson had his coming out party this week. Can we expect some week 2 Trent Richardson or week 1 Trent Richardson going forward?
I'm going to pump the brakes on Trent Richardson a little bit. I wasn't really high on him. I mean, he had a nice week this week. They were playing the Bengals. Granted, he didn't do much against the Eagles with a good front four. Let's see when he plays another good team. He may have a good week against Buffalo this week, but we'll see what happens.
I think you're going to see this throughout the rest of the year with Richardson. It's going to be like hit 1 week, miss the next. Yeah. Hit 1 week, miss the next.
He's based on the offense. He's also one of their only options too, so it's easy for defenses. He is their
only option.
Yeah, so it's easy for defenses just to target him, and they're not worried about Massaquoi.
Yeah.
Or Ben Agbayani.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's going to focus on just shutting him down this week. You know, he's really all that they got. But either way, he catches the ball too. So I see him getting 80 yards total, maybe a touchdown.
I think he'll find the end zone this week, though.
Yeah.
I break down a couple matchups here in Week 3. Kind of want to get your take on what stands out to you in those matchups. One being Houston and Denver. Peyton Manning with an awful Monday Night Football. Do you see him bouncing back, or are we going to see more of the same turnover-prone Peyton Manning in Week 3?
It's an interesting game. I mean, two good defenses going up against each other. I don't expect Peyton to have that great of a week. It's going to be an average week for Peyton, in my opinion. The ball was not coming out of his hand well. It didn't look like the normal Peyton. I'm sure the nerves from his neck and his arm, they do connect, so I'm sure it has something to do with it. But I just think that, temper the expectations a little bit, back down, bring Peyton back down to earth a little bit. You might fall back into the average quarterback category. I know it's weird to say, but...
No, I still think that it's still early in the season. I think Peyton still has to get more in sync with his offense. A lot of players have to get used to, what he does, his audibles and everything. But I just see, I see Peyton having an average week. I don't see him throwing 3 picks again.
Not against Houston.
The defense is pretty good.
Yeah, Houston's defense...
They were number 1 in the league last year.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Sunday night, New England, coming off an awful loss against Arizona, travels to Baltimore, who is also coming off a loss. Do you see Tom Brady bouncing back? Baltimore usually gives him fits, but and he is missing Aaron Hernandez. But do you see him bouncing back on Sunday night?
I see him having a better game than he did against Arizona, but you got to temper your expectations with him too. I see him going between 250 and 300 yards, maybe 2 to 3 touchdowns, which is solid for him.
After his first 2 weeks, that's pretty solid for him.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get a lot more Wes Welker in the offense this week because Josh McDaniels, all of a sudden Hernandez goes out of the game, and now the guy can't call a play. He's just trying to force everything to Brandon Lloyd all of a sudden because that's his boy from the Rams and Denver. So, I mean, for that offense to click, they need Wes Welker to be involved. If he's not involved, then you're not going to get the Brady production that we're used to seeing.
I think fantasy owners are in trouble with Wes. He just got moved down off the depth charts. He's now listed as the number 3 wide receiver for no apparent reason. I just think they're trying to phase him out.
Wasn't he always the number 3 wide receiver?
Nah, he was number 2 when Lloyd came. Now he's number 3. He got he was listed as a starter. He didn't come in until the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think they're really just jerking him.
Is Belichick trying to punish him for dropping that pass in the Super Bowl?
I think he didn't sign that deal.
What did you do, Wes?
They're just phasing him out, trying to say that they don't need him.
On Monday night, do you see the Packers, who have to travel to Seattle, you see them, see their passing game getting back on the right foot here?
Upset special Monday night.
Yeah, you on the Russell Wilson bandwagon?
Upset
it's
special.
Not so much the Russell Wilson. It's the atmosphere.
It's
the
Seattle.
Traveling.
Yeah,
it's the whole.
Yeah, you saw what happened to the Cowboys this week. The line is low. You got to watch.
Yeah, Seattle has a really solid defense.
They do, and with that.
And, I mean, if Greg Jennings isn't back, then it's going to be tough for Rodgers.
And with that 12th man there, it's going to be tough.
And they got a running back that can switch cheese, the Packers defense, and Marshawn Lynch on the other side.
All right, guys, we will be right back with our Legends and Jerk-Offs for Week 3. Welcome back, everybody, to the Week 3 edition of the Best Effin' Fantasy Show, live from the basement. Follow us on Twitter if you don't already. Shame on you. Best Effin' Show. It's that time of the week where we give our legends and jerk-offs for week 3, our version of studs, duds, and sleepers. Jared, why don't you start us off with your legend this week?
I'm going down as a legend, whether or not you like me or not.
My first one's Drew Brees. He had a down week last week. The 0-2 Saints are home against the Chiefs, who have a very pass-friendly defense. I see him having a big game.
I'm going to stay with that theme and go quarterback myself, Jared. Matthew Stafford. Finally bounced back week against Tennessee. Their defense is terrible. Why not Matthew Stafford, Calvin Johnson? Can Calvin please score?
Seriously.
Lob City.
He didn't
Lob
matter.
City.
Curse.
Lob City. Come on.
All right, my next one's Tony Romo. Eli threw 500 yards against Tampa Bay last week. Romo should have a field day.
All right, Jared. I'm gonna go with another Cowboy. So I'm gonna go with DeMarco Murray. You know, he's yet to find the end zone. I figure if the Cowboy offense is going to be successful, they have to run the ball more, and Murray's the perfect guy to get that offense going through the air and on the ground. So Murray against Tampa.
I like that. All right, Rob Gronkowski. Hernandez out. Brady's going to rely on him more. He'll get double teamed, but look what Selleck did to the Ravens last week. Should have a huge game.
That's a great segue into Brent Selleck, who's my legend this week.
All right.
You know, Arizona defense isn't that bad. You know, the Eagles traveling to Arizona, and the front four is pretty. You know, they're pretty decent for Arizona. So I mean, Selleck has 12 catches already in the season. He looks like he's Vic's favorite target. You know, check down. You know, why not Brent Selleck?
I just want to throw that out. Another upset special this week, the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, my next one, Brandon LaFell. We talked about him earlier. He's emerging as a key component in that offense, like you saw last week. Wide receiver 3 going forward. I see that trend continuing.
And I'm going to go with another wide receiver. He had a terrible game on Monday night, shut down a little bit by Broncos, bounce back week. In week 3, Julio Jones. Why not? The guy's an absolute freak. He can do it all. He dropped a touchdown. You know, he should have had 1 touchdown. So
Yeah.
bounce back week on Sunday.
Yep. I'll stay with the wide receiver theme. I'm going to say Des Bryant. He was non-existent in that game last week. So, and I said before, if Romo's going to be throwing a lot, I see him having a big game.
All right. I don't have any more receivers,
That's fun.
but I have a running back
Okay.
Monday night. Marshawn Lynch against the Packers. You already said, you know, Packers run defense, Swiss cheese. We saw what Gore did to them in week 1. Forte, he was more effective in the passing game in week 2. Michael Bush, when he actually started running through the tackles, had a decent showing against the Packers. So Marshawn Lynch on Monday night.
Now, how about some jerk-offs for week 3?
My first one, he's been doing pretty good, but I see Demaryius Thomas having an off game. Houston has probably the best pass defense in the league. I see him having a bit of a down game.
All right, Jerry. Since you went receiver, I'll go receiver first, too. We'll go Andre Johnson against Denver.
What the fuck is that, yeah?
Andre Johnson I think he put up like 3-4 points against Jacksonville this past week, so now he gets Champ Bailey, and
Jerry's shaking his head a little bit.
he threw me off the fucking soundboard.
That's okay. Well, Houston did go run heavy,
They're always run heavy. They don't throw the ball ever.
and Roddy White owned Champ Bailey last week.
Okay. And that's because look who you have on the other side. They have to go man.
That's true. That's true.
Come on, Jerry, get your head in the game.
Who's on the other side of Andre? You are. So, I mean...
Lester Jean.
Lester
Ooh,
Kevin Walter.
Estrogen?
Estrogen.
What are you saying?
So...
My next jerk off, Larry Fitzgerald. Cobb's going to be on the ground all day, like I said before. Fitz won't do anything.
I'll go receiver too. I don't like Brandon Lloyd's matchup against Baltimore. You know, they're just going to try and force him the ball, and Baltimore's just going to... And Everett's going to be back there ball hawking.
All right, my last one is Stephen Ridley. Baltimore's pretty solid at home against the run. I see Brady passing more. I don't see them running the ball that much.
All right, I'm going to go lightning round with running backs. Adrian Peterson against the 49ers, Beanie Wells versus the Eagles, Wilson McGahee versus the Texans. And one quarterback, we have Matt Schaub, speaking of quarterbacks that don't throw the ball, against Denver.
That's time for everybody's favorite segment, the Who the F*** is that sleeper of the week?
Your mouth.
Jared, who you got?
My first one, he made some big plays in the preseason. Damaris Johnson for the Eagles. Macklin's a little banged up. I think he's going to get more playing time in this game. And I think the Eagles unleash him this week.
Unleash him.
Unleash the dragon.
Where'd you pull that one out of?
All right, my other one's Kellen Davis. He caught a touchdown in garbage time last week, but he was targeted a team high 6 times. I see the whole Bears offense bouncing back this week, and Davis could have a pretty nice game.
Okay, I'm trying to keep the streak alive so far, Jerry. You know,
All right.
trying to go for my 3rd straight this week. It's not so much of a little-known name, Kenny Britt.
Kenny Britt.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Kenny
He's
Britt.
back?
He's back.
Yes.
He finally got back on the field after suspension, plus his knee injury last year. No setbacks against a horrible Lions secondary. It's going to be a high-scoring game. We'd like to think so. I mean, because we all know what happened this past week. So, Kenny Britt, bring me my third straight. Who the F is that sleeper of the week? Come on.
Excellent insight, fellas. We will be right back. Take some questions from our Twitter followers. And we're back. Week 3 edition, Best F and Fantasy Show. Time to take some questions, but before we do that, we have a couple shout-outs. I know we don't normally do this, but I think for this week it's perfect. First off, we want to give a shout-out to the motherland, the country of Italy, for banning, that's right, I said it, banning our tight end preseason special.
Thanks, guys.
Why would they do this?
You know, I mean, I guess...
We got to get the consigliere on the phone.
We have to. This
Call
is
the
an
embassy.
outrage. This is an outrage.
So, special shout out to them. I guess, you know, there's no such thing as bad press, I guess.
No.
If they're banning us, that's good.
Our Goombas took care of us.
Exactly. Joe, I think you have a really special shout out to the one and only, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be, Bret Hart.
Thanks, Brett. Shout me out on Twitter today, at Joey Eskimo, for the wedding. Congrats. We love you, Brett.
Absolutely.
Much respect.
And one last shout out
This is for Carmen.
to that creepy gentleman on on the fantasy football, the NFL.com fantasy football commercials.
It's serious fun.
He
Ben Roethlisberger's bizarre Twitter.
he's quite an odd creature.
I just want to know how much money they wasted on those promotions.
It's unreal.
I can't stand that. They're not even funny.
It's not even that. And by the way, CeeLo, you gotta go too.
Oh my God.
You have to go. That whole NFL Network
the
campaign
CEO
has to
version
go.
of Blitzkrieg Bop is
Yeah.
it's not flying
No.
for me.
It is awful. I hope that panther just morphs into a real panther and the NFL guy's hand and eats him. I can't stand that guy.
He really is.
Jesus.
Wow. But again, special shout out to all those people. It's that time of the show where we take some questions from Twitter.
Be in with that book.
Twitter's the best way to reach us. You can tweet us at BestFNShow with any questions or comments going into your matchups. I'm going to send it over to our producer Nick Specca, who's got the first question.
All right, our first question comes from C's360, and he says, "Hey, I lost Hernandez. That sucks, dude. Should I start Petta or Bennett? What's your
Petta.
choice?"
It's Pitta.
Petta. The Petta. Petta?
I'm going Pitta, whatever you want to call him. Start him this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's getting more looks. Flacco loves throwing to him. I'd roll with him.
They're best friends off the field,
I
by
like
the way.
both
Little
guys.
side note.
Oh.
I actually like both guys
Pitta and
this
Bennett?
week.
No, Pitta and Flacco.
Oh.
Pitta and Bennett. When did they hang out?
Petta had 15 targets last week.
Could have.
I actually like both guys this week, but I'm going to, round it out and say Pitta also.
Pitta.
It's tough because Bennett gets a lot of red zone looks, but Joe Flacco likes to air it out to 15 times at Petta.
You retarded cousin.
No, I did that on purpose. It was a joke.
Derek.
So,
Derek.
eat shit, Derek.
Eat shit, Derek.
Our next question comes from James the Banker, and he said, sure does. He said, which receiver should I bench for Amendola? Colston, Dez, or Jordy?
I have to go with Colson. He hasn't looked like himself in the first 2 weeks. Especially if it's a PPR league. Amendola's going to get the targets. He's going to get the cheap points for his 2 and 3 yard receptions here and there. The only thing he's not going to give you is that many touchdowns. That's a extra bonus. He's still going to get 7 or 8 catches a game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Out of that bunch, I would sit Colston.
All right, James.
Here comes the money.
Our final question comes from NYC Money 123.
Oh, we got
more
it's all
money.
about money. I
Everyone's
guess.
making it rain except me. And he says, "What's up? What's up? What's up?" He says, "Bill or Welker this week?"
Oof.
Oy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. You don't know what they're going to do with Welker, but I expect him to be more involved in the offense. I just can't trust Dwayne Bowe. But he's the king of garbage time.
That's
King
true.
of garbage time.
And they are playing the Saints this week.
Yeah, they're playing the Saints. The Saints are going to get out to an early lead. If it's a PPR league, I would go Wes Welker because they're going to use him more since Hernandez is out. But standard, I would go Bowe.
100%. I agree with that. 100%. That's the
real.
logical way to go.
Real analysis.
All right, that's all the questions I have. I'm gonna send it back to Steve.
All right, Nick, good stuff. Excellent show this week, guys. If you have any questions or comments leading up to your Week 3 matchup, tweet us at BestEffinShow. Make sure you check out the website, besteffandfantasyshow.com. The podcast and the rankings will be up soon. Good luck this week, and we'll see you in Week 4.